Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. Today I'm looking at Hornby's latest brand new loco in TT scale. In terms of diesels in Hornby's TT range so far, we've seen the Class 08 Shunter and the Class 43 HST. But what was missing was a big classic diesel with double ends. Well, to date that has changed because Hornby have just released this. It is the all-new Class 50. So as you can see, this is a large diesel. It was used for passenger work. And while this is not one of the super early and primitive diesels, it was still built in the late 1960s, making it relatively early, but it was modern enough so that it lasted a good number of decades in service, making this a pretty versatile model to own, which should cover a lot of modelers' needs. The downside to this model is that it's frightfully expensive, which is frustrating because when the model launched, when it was first announced, it wasn't that bad. So today the full RRP for this is £167.99, and frankly that is really close to 00 scale prices. And in fact currently the 00 scale version of the Class 50 is cheaper directly from Hornby, and by quite a margin as well. And that's crazy because that is £44 more than I paid for this, having pre-ordered it less than 2 years ago when it was announced. So the RRP used to be £145.99, so that's gone up by £22. That's a little bit ahead of the rate of inflation, so that's not the best because some companies obviously don't up the prices of their models between announcement and release. Well, Hornby has done. The reason I got this so cheap was because I was in the Hornby TT 120 club, which was free to join and it still is, but now you get no discount as a club member, and really there's no value in any of the remaining perks. So the club still exists, but it's kind of dead in the water. Anyway, with that TT club discount, I managed to get this for £124.09, which, like I say, is about £44 cheaper than it costs now. Now obviously today you can get around 10% of the value back in hobby rewards if you buy from Hornby, or you can get a 10% discount if you buy from the retailers. But at the end of the day, this is much more expensive now than it was. So high expectations. This costs almost as much as you'd expect a 00 version of this model to cost, so therefore I would expect the same sort of features, and expect it I certainly shall. If you're interested in picking one of these up, I do have affiliate links down in the description. But for now, let's check out this model, let's see what this is like, and let's see if it meets those incredibly high expectations. So, Hornby's first proper diesel-looking diesel in TT scale, and this is plugging a big hole in the range, so I'm really looking forward to seeing whether or not this was worth it. Let me show you the end of the box. So the one I've gone for is TT3014M. It is the BR Class 50 Leviathan number 50040 and it's ERA 7. This is also Next 18 DCC ready, which means you need a Next 18 pin DCC decoder if you want to chip this, and I believe it is also Hornby HM7000 compatible, so you can chip this with sound quite affordably, which is good. Anyway, nothing really to see on the box, no info on the back, so let's jump in straight away and see what this is like. I have to say, the box itself feels relatively heavy, given how small the loco inside is due to its scale, so hopefully this will be a really good and hefty model. Yep, I like the little sleeve it comes in. It's just a dinky version of the 00 scale packaging. Very nice. Okay. So we've got the loco. Yeah, it feels like a good bit of weight in there. I will pop it on the scales later on. And we also have some paperwork. So here it is for the Class 50. We've got some generic information on the front there. Let's open this up, see what's inside. So first of all, a bit about lubrication. You can see straight away that this appears to have all wheels driven, which is really good. Hopefully it's got all-wheel pickup as well. It does appear to have accessories. It looks as though there's lots of accessories included here, and I'll show those in just a second. But yeah, solid instructions here, shows you where all the different parts go. Body removal, this is important. It does show that the body's held on with screws and not clips. That suggests that it's a quality solution. Good instructions on that, and here is how you chip this. It doesn't seem as though a speaker is pre-fitted into the model though, which is a pity. At this price, I think there's no room for missing features, so I think that would be one of them, if that is indeed the case. And then on the back, nothing of very much importance. Alright, so seems like there's a lot of accessories with this one, so let's open up the blister and let's see what you actually get. And yeah, you get quite a lot. So we've got a pair of plows, which is a lovely inclusion that just adds a little bit of extra interest to the model if you fit those. We do have a good quality etched nameplate there. Wasn't aware that that was a feature. Again, very, very pleased to see this though for the price. And like I say, the quality is good. And then we've got various vacuum fittings, different pipes and such for the buffer beams, as well as screw link couplings. Now these don't appear to be posable. They are in the raised position, which means you could still have these fitted to the model, I assume, and still be able to use the TT couplings. So that's pretty good to see. Nice few accessories in there. Okay, the loco then. First question, what is the painted finish like? Well, let's see. Hoping to see lots of impressive details on this. Right, bit of plastic on the top. Unwrap. Okay. There it is. So yeah, the finish is, yeah, it's a little bit on the flat side, I would say, but it is catching the light a little bit, so it's not completely matte or anything. In terms of the detail on the roof, yeah, this looks fantastic. It's scaled very, very well, I would say. And that looks like an etched grille on there too, which is good. But yeah, let's lift it up, see what the weight's like. Oh yeah, not bad. Yeah, not bad at all. I think this could stand a chance of being the heaviest TT loco I've looked at so far. And yeah, this is beautiful. It's very, very well painted, as you can see, and we'll talk more about the decoration in just a second. And at a glance, the level of detail looks to be excellent, particularly around the ends, which I like to see. So this is a real departure from what else is in Hornby's TT range at the moment. Quite a few steam locos, and in terms of diesels, we've just got the shunter and the HST, which is very different. So nice to see a proper diesel. The Class 50 is a real classic, isn't it? And this is looking great, and I will show you the details in just a second. But first of all, here's a bit of background on the Class 50 in real life. The BR Class 50 was made up of exactly 50 diesel-electric Coco locomotives built between 1967 and 1968. The Class 50 was intended to replace passenger steam locomotives on the West Coast Main Line at an impressive 100 miles per hour. To save time during the design process, the Class 50 was heavily based on the existing Class 55 Deltics, except the Class 50 would feature just one 16-cylinder engine, which was similar to the ones used in the BR Class 40. The Class 50 had a power output of 2,700 brake horsepower, and they were indeed capable of 100 miles per hour as intended. As the class aged though, they were displaced a couple of times. The first time was when the West Coast Main Line was electrified and the new Class 87 electric locomotives took over their duties. Then, in 1977, following the introduction of the Intercity 125, the Class 50 was refurbished to address some of the reliability issues of the class and also to bring it up to more modern standards. This gave them a new lease of life, allowing most of them to be used well into the 1990s. By this point though, the class was again plagued with reliability issues, and by 1994 the final member of the class had been withdrawn. They still have a real railway presence today though, with no less than 18 surviving under preservation. So there it is, Hornby's brand new Class 50 Leviathan in TT scale, and I think this is excellent. As you can see, it really does look good. I'm not quite convinced that this was worth the money because, like I say, it's very close to the price of a 00 scale diesel, and yet this is so much smaller. Usually to that, people will say, oh, you can't expect smaller scale models to be cheaper because they still have to have all these small details intricately fitted. And yeah, that is true. That is an argument for price not to be proportional to scale. But otherwise, no, that's not a valid point. I mean, you try and buy an O scale diesel for about the same price as a 00 scale one, and you'll be sorely, sorely disappointed. But otherwise, yeah, this looks fantastic. It is indeed Hornby's heaviest TT loco to date. The Class 43 from the 125 was 158 grams, Well, this is 37 grams heavier, which is a lot at this scale, at 195 grams, so very close to 200 grams, a nice weighty loco. The body construction is obviously plastic, as you might expect, but I would say there's a very heavy die-cast chassis on the inside. Let's take a look at the paintwork and the decoration then. I think here under the lights the finish does look absolutely fine. It's pretty good and convincing, I would say. The way that this has been painted is pretty precise. You can see where the yellow joins the blue here. It is more or less perfect. And the divide between the grey of the roof and the blue of the body also looks excellent as well. We've also got some of the window frames separately painted too, and all of this has been done excellently. So considering the scale of the loco, yep, the decoration is great. We've also got the running number on here, which as you can see is a good print, as is the double arrows here. I do like these liveries with the large logos. We've also got other painted details, such as the specs of the loco on that little board there. Very, very tiny print, but I think possibly even legible. We'll see what the close-up lens says. We've got the high voltage warning signs on the side there, and of course a printed version of the Leviathan nameplate, although there is an extra one for you to fit instead if you want. The bogies have a bit of decoration on them as well. These little pipes have been picked out, which is really impressive. That's been done very finely. And the door handles, these have also been picked out, and this is super impressive because of how impossibly small those are. So I would say the decoration is really impressive, and it actually elevates the model beyond the physical level of detail that it's got. The physical level of detail is still pretty impressive though. I mean, the bogies look fantastic. These are not really far off at all from what you'd expect to see in 00 scale. Lots of detail. The steps underneath the cab doors, these are separately fitted, and that is not separately fitted is extremely well moulded. The underframe is also great as well. We've got a number of separately fitted and separately picked out parts, particularly around here. And if I show you underneath, you can get an idea of the complexity there. I think the side of the loco body is relatively simple. I think all of the grills and such are just moulded effects, although we do have separately fitted glazing, which allows you a view into the engine room. Can't really see whether there's any detail behind these windows or not. I guess we'll find out when I take the body off. And then beside the cab doors, we've got these wire handrails, which do look nice and fine actually, and pretty impressive that those are separately fitted. By far the most complex area of the model are the ends, and there is a lot of separately fitted detail here. So let's start at the top. We've got the separate wipers here, which are relatively fine, but they are nevertheless quite overscale, I would say. If you pull up a picture of the real thing, yeah, the wipers are not that large, and I think the handrails around the front here, although these are wire and separately fitted, I think they do look a little bit on the chunky side, but equally the fact that they are not just a part of the moulding is really good to see. We've also got lots of different separately fitted parts, and of course holes in the buffer beam so that you can fit the various pipework and such if you want to. The buffers are made of metal, which is good to see, and they are blackened, although not sprung. I've still not seen any sprung buffers here at TT scale, so that is pretty much on par with other models. And then we've got these separately fitted steps as well, just underneath the buffers, which are very fine indeed. Here's a look at the couplings. These are kinematic, and they use the standard Hornby style TT coupling, and the kinematic aspect seems to work nicely. Nice smooth motion on there. Hopefully they will work well. One pretty impressive area on this model is the cab area. Now, as you can see, we've got seating inside here, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but the cab floor is actually at a realistic height. This is something that manufacturers struggle with in 00 scale, and yet here we've got a TT model, which is much smaller, and it does have a realistic cab space. The inside of the cab has been painted, but none of the details have been picked out, so the controls and such don't stand out massively, although the seating has been separately painted, so that at least stands out. I think given the scale, the cab itself is not too bad. Up on the roof, most of the detail here is just a part of the moulding, but the moulding is extremely crisp. We do have the odd separately fitted part, as you can see, and that includes the etched grille on the top, and behind that grille there is a physical fan. I don't know if it's motorized, probably not, but it is there. The grille itself, although it is etched, is not a good fit to the body though. It doesn't quite follow the profile of the roof, so it's a pretty poor fit. I do think that could have been better. I think the grille really needs to be anchored at the sides, as well as at the top and bottom. Otherwise though, yeah, a very, very impressive model. It's got most of the detail that you'd expect to see on a 00 scale model, albeit not quite as fine scale. Otherwise though, yeah, it looks fantastic. So let's get this down onto the track now. Let's open this up, see what it's like. Hopefully the quality of the mechanism will be high. I think it is from what I've seen so far, but we'll go over all of that. And of course, we'll also power this up and see how this runs. So there she is down onto the track, looking absolutely fantastic, I must admit. And I've already filmed the initial performance test and running in, and I'll show you how all that went in just a second. Next, I did a disassembly to take a look at the mechanism, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So if you remember at the start, I was saying I was expecting for the features here to be similar to that of a 00 scale locomotive, given the price. And I have to say that those high expectations were absolutely met by this loco. The quality of the mechanism is excellent. So the bogie bases are clipped on, they're not fixed with screws, which is a pity, and that is a bit awkward for servicing, but they weren't too difficult to remove. And underneath those covers you can see there are proper turned bearings fitted to each axle, which is really, really good to see at this scale. You can see that all of the wheels are also driven, which is great. We've got nice gearing here going between each of the axles. Pulling one of the axles out reveals we have wiper pickups going to each wheel, so we have all-wheel drive and all-wheel pickup, which is great. Removing the body was pretty simple actually. There are just 4 screws, and I did notice that these screws actually screw into proper separate brass screw threads which have been glued to the inside of the body. That is really, really good to see. No self-tapping screws here. You do also have to undo these pipes at each end of the model, which is a little bit fiddly, but the factory obviously got the memo about not gluing these parts in place because they came out nice and easily, so that feature worked really, really well. Pulling the body out was a little bit tricky because it was a tight fit, but in the end I managed to get it off unscathed. Here is the heavy die-cast chassis. Yeah, this thing is pretty impressive. At almost 200 grams, that's a lot for TT scale, I would say, the heaviest so far. Here is the 5-pole motor. It is indeed a 5-pole skew-wound motor, which is great, and it does also have 2 flywheels coupled to it. Again, that's exactly what you'd expect in 00, and here it is at TT scale. Here is the next 18-pin DCC socket, nice and easy to access that and plenty of space for a decoder. There is sadly no speaker pre-fitted to the model though. Now I guess the justification for this would be that you get a speaker when you buy a Hornby HM7000 decoder, but let's be honest, those speakers cost very, very little. It would have saved a lot of faffing if they could have just fitted one to the model, as you would normally expect for a model of this price, but obviously it's not a massive deal. Here is a look at the fan. I know this isn't really part of the mechanism, but you can see what that looks like underneath the grille there. Not motorized, not able to spin, but at least it is here physically. Here are the head and tail light LEDs at either end. The one in the middle there is obviously the orangey headlight, and the outer 2 are the red tail lights. There's also another LED up at the top for the upper lights, and the cabs also have LED lighting as well, although these don't appear to work on analog. These are probably just a DCC only function. And then the back-to-back gauging came in quite reliably at 10.3mm each, so that's nice and consistent as well. So yeah, a truly high quality mechanism. You would fully expect that, of course, for the price, so I'm not blown away by it or anything, but the fact that this expensive model has a mechanism to match really is good to see. So with that, let me jump back in time and let me show you how that first performance test went. Okay, moment of truth then. Let's find out whether this works, and if it does, how well it works. So, setting direction, let's give it some power. Here goes. Yep, it's alive. Lovely. Yeah, well, at that speed it's certainly smooth. It took off a little bit roughly, as you probably saw, but at this point it hasn't run in yet, and it will need obviously a full 30 minutes in either direction before I make a judgment on the performance. But yeah, so far, out of the box, it does look pretty good. Yeah, I wouldn't fault the way that's running at the moment. Seems to be nice and reliable. Okay, so let's test the speed then. Let's see what that's like. I'll run by at 50% power for you. Here we go. Oof, yeah. So it's certainly got a bit of a pace to it. Yeah, that looks good. Let's see what full speed is like. Obviously, this did do express passenger work. Oh, wow. Yep, so it's got a range of speeds, that's for sure. Let's bring it back. Alright, so in terms of lighting, the tail lights do work on this model. So when the loco runs away from you, you get the red tail lights there. They look pretty good. And then in the forwards direction, you've got the large headlamp on the front, which is a very, very warm white, almost to the point of orange. And obviously that's supposed to simulate an incandescent lamp, which does have a more orange glow than your typical LED. So I would say that is spot on. That's a good colour temperature. Okay, that all looks good. Let's see then what the torque is like. Is the loco able to turn its wheels under an obstruction? That should tell us how powerful the thing is. Here we go, up to 50. Yep. Very, very powerful. That's great to see. And finally, right out of the box, let's see what the crawl is like. So let's ease this up very, very gently until it starts to move. Ooh, I think where we got a twitch. Let's go a bit further. So yeah, it's kind of jerking along, wobbling a little bit actually. Yeah, it's got a bit of a shake to it, as you can see. Is that coming across on camera? So yeah, not brilliant at this point, but again, it hasn't run in at this point. So I think that's going to be the next job. I'll set it to 50 and let this really stretch its legs, and then hopefully this will start to perform more like a 00 scale loco, because this is a bit jerky at the moment. And you know, if you're paying 170 quid for something like this, it really needs to perform excellently. And of course, I've got N-gauge locos that can crawl flawlessly, so there's no reason why this shouldn't either, particularly at this kind of price. But anyway, let's go for a run-in, 50% speed, here we go. Well, it certainly seems nice and sure-footed on the track. It's maintaining a nice, smooth, constant speed. Obviously, it's not derailing, and it's also not slowing down on the curves either. Plenty of torque in the mechanism, quite obviously, so it's going to be good and powerful. And with a weight like this has got, sort of 200 or so grams, that's pretty important, because you might want to load this up with quite a lot of passenger coaches. And I would say, even though I don't have that many to test this with, I would say this would be able to haul a really good number of them. I think I've got 4 coaches that I can test this with, so not a great number, but I will try it in just a second. So that's it. I'll let this run in for 30 forwards, 30 backwards, then we'll come back and do some more testing. Alright, so there we have it, running in complete, and it is a delightful runner. At least it is at the higher speeds. The crawl wasn't brilliant before, and we're about to find out whether that's any better now. But yeah, at the higher speeds, absolutely tremendous, and it's also incredibly powerful. So I measured the tractive effort of this, and it came in at 0.32 newtons, which is very much 00 scale territory. And that should allow this to haul around 52 coaches on straight and level track. That's rather a lot, I'm sure you'll agree. Absolutely crazy. So powerful, heavy, all of those aspects are really good. Okay, how is the crawl though? Has the massive weight of the model meant that it's too difficult to move slowly? Well, let's see. Let's ease it up again. Was quite coggy before, did a bit of vibrating and not very smooth. So let's see if that's any better. Ooh. So it does seem to have a bit more control now at the lower speeds, but it's still jerking and cogging, as you can see. Let's turn it up a bit. Yeah, see, it's only just smooth at that speed. Okay, let's try it in reverse. Bring it in a bit better first. Okay, do the same again. I'll turn it up slowly. So it looks like it's going to do it, but then yeah, it starts kind of jerking and juddering. A bit faster, a bit slower. Yeah, it's not got that quality at the slow speeds, has it? And really, that's not okay at this kind of price. I know it's a smaller mechanism. I know that perhaps you can't expect the same kind of performance at TT scale than you can at 00, but really, I've seen N scale stuff run better than this, so I'm going to say that doesn't really add up as a good excuse. It's not bad by any means, and obviously this is an express passenger loco, and at the higher speeds it is excellent. It really is a good runner. And who knows, on DCC maybe the performance would be better, but I test all of my locos on this same controller and I have seen better. So yeah, that is one downside. Otherwise though, it's excellent. I mean, look at this. Can't fault that really, can you? So, like I say, I don't have a huge number of coaches, but I have set up my 3 Mark 1s plus the Pullman just to test the couplings and such. So with that, let's back up and let's see, oh no, wrong way, and let's see how we get on with the coupling. Here we go. Right, so this usually doesn't work that well on the curves, but I will try it. If not though, I'll do it on the straight. Now, as you can see, this is not that great. It's quite difficult to do this in a controlled manner. And yeah, it's not coupled, but that's not really the loco's fault. I should be doing this on a straight really. So let's move to a straight and try again. Right, again I'll try and do this steadily because it does seem to crawl better on the straight. Yeah, I think it was worse on that curve a second ago, wasn't it? But yeah, this is about the best I can do. It's a bit jerky, but it's getting there slowly. Oh yeah, that was good. So the couplings themselves work excellently. Yep, it got it first time. So there it is, jerking the coaches forwards. Let's see at what pace it becomes smooth, about there. So yeah, it's not terrible by any means, but I am going to stick with what I said and say I have seen better. So there we go. Alright, and running alongside it I have the 08 shunter to run something a little bit different with a bit of a goods train. So that's it then, the Hornby Class 50. I think overall this is really, really good. It's not perfect, but the level of detail is tremendous. In fact, if I was reviewing this as a 00 loco, I think I would still say the level of detail was pretty good. To say how much smaller this is than a 00 loco, that's really no mean feat. The other major thing about this is the mechanism. Yes, the performance isn't the greatest in the world, but the mechanism itself is high quality. It looks like it's built to last. I can't see this thing breaking down after a year or two. Every component of the mechanism seems to be high quality, even though customers can't see it at the point of purchase, which is really good to see. I don't like it when you spend a fortune on a loco that looks good on the outside but is pants on the inside. Well, that's not this. This is good quality inside and out, which is really, really good to see. I think the performance is a little bit disappointing at the slow speed, like I've said. I would expect better, really, at this price. But looking at it like this, there's certainly nothing wrong with the way it's running. It is nice and smooth and powerful, to say the very least. So I think overall you can colour me pretty impressed. It's easily as good as the other Hornby TT locos, and those have been fantastic as well. So once again, impressed by Hornby's TT offerings. This is a really, really good addition to the range. Let's have some ratings then for Hornby's all new Class 50 in TT scale. And as you can see by the ratings, this is looking really, really good. Level of detail is very close to a 5-star for me. It is fantastic. The paintwork looks fantastic. You've got a lot of separate details on here, wire handrails, wipers, all that kind of stuff. Even more to fit in the accessories bag, including etched nameplates. That's really good to see. We've got an etched grille on the roof and a full suite of lighting, including interior cab lights, just to name some of the features. It doesn't get a full 5-star because some of the parts do look a little bit chunky in my opinion, and the cab detail is a little bit on the basic side. A few painted controls and such would really have elevated it up to 5-star, but really it is pretty good. Performance, while the performance is fine, I think this is the weakest aspect of the model because it's really not that great at the slower speeds. So it's jerky, it kind of lurches along a little bit, it shakes, not the best. At the higher speed it is absolutely fantastic. So, you know, once you're coupled up to your coaches and the train's gone on its express passenger run or whatever, you'll be absolutely fine. It's just the slow speed work that this didn't do too well. So I have knocked it down a couple of stars for that. Obviously your mileage may vary, but I think that is a fair assessment of the way this loco performed. The pulling power though was magnificent, 0.32 newtons. That should allow this to haul around 52 coaches on straight and level track. Well, I think even half of that would have been adequate, so the pulling power of this is exceptional. Really good to see so much weight in this model. That served it extremely well. Mechanism, a little bit like the level of detail, this is nearly perfect. So we've got all-wheel drive, all-wheel pickup, proper bearings on the axles, real quality screws, not just self-tapping ones, heavy die-cast chassis, 5-pole motor, dual flywheels, and nice easy access to the DCC decoder socket. Again, it just misses out on the 5-star because it doesn't have the pre-fitted speaker, and the bogie frames are clipped together rather than held with screws. Very minor things, I think, on an otherwise excellent quality mechanism, but again, not quite a 5 for me. The quality, I've given it the same score, 4.5. The quality here is excellent. So the model is painted to a very high standard. The build quality is noticeably excellent as well, especially for Hornby. So we've got no visible glue that I saw, everything fitted nice and straightly. And the thing that really told me that this was a high quality model was seeing those separately fitted metal screw threads on the inside of the body. Just real quality this. The only thing stopping me from giving this the full 5-star is the grille on top of the loco, because it's just not a great fit to the roof. It kind of doesn't look that great. If that had been fitted properly, I think I would have given this 5-star. Okay, value for money then. Well, I have to say the price I paid of £124.09 is absolutely spot on for this. That is a bargain. The downside is it's not available for anything close to that price anymore, and you can now pay up to £167.99 for this, and the retailer price of £151.19 still being quite a bit higher than I paid. Now that doesn't make this a rip-off or anything, because you do get a lot for your money. This actually is pretty close to 00 scale in terms of its detail and features. However, it's also a very tiny model. I mean, this thing is way smaller than a 00 model, and it doesn't run as well as you'd expect a 00 model to run at those slower speeds. So I've given it 3-star, middle of the road. You do get a lot for your money, but I'm not convinced that it's worth 170 odd pounds. So overall then, that is 8.00 out of 10. That's a really good grade. That's a grade of C, which would have been higher if the performance matched the rest of the model, but still a good score. And into the logbook we go. This is the second new TT diesel release this year, and it comes in just below the Class 43 HST. The two got basically the same score. So it's good to see Hornby's TT range produced to a consistent standard, and this Class 50 is excellent. I would highly recommend it, even though the prices are a little bit on the steep side. Well folks, that will just about do it for this review of the new Hornby Class 50 in TT scale. The range is really starting to build up now. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locos we've got now, which is a good bit of variety, isn't it? And I think this has to be one of the best, quite honestly. I would say it's better than the Steamers, in my opinion. Yeah, the quality is noticeably higher, and the way it looks is fantastic. I mean, like I've always said, the TT models themselves are really excellent, and this is no exception. So do let me know down in the comments what you think about this. Are you going to try one? Have you already tried one? And if so, what do you think about it? For now though, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.